So in the last topic, we brushed on APIs, talked on REST APIs. I'm hoping you've been enjoying it. I think I have myself. But this one, I'm talking about webhooks. Right? Webhooks are a special kind of mini APIs, kind of like weird APIs. Your own system is providing the API to be called, right? But you're requesting a third-party system to call it, right? So those third-party tell you, okay, this is what I'll call you with. Most APIs, right? You are the one calling the APIs. You are the one implementing the APIs. You are making a request, or you are using a library. You are requesting for access to the Bluetooth, saying, "Oh, can you please give me access to Bluetooth? Can you give me certain information from your backend? Can you give me certain notification when this happens?" So most APIs, you are making the request to a system. The system processes that request and responds back to you. We'll talk about the method, if it's a REST API, if it's a normal operating system API, there are libraries used to interface. But for webhooks, it's a special kind of API because you are being called. But like the APIs are the one calling you with this standard. Yeah, they are the ones that declare the standard. They tell you what method they will call with. Webhooks are more popular with REST API, right? So they'll tell you what API, what method they will call with. Is it a post, a get, or a put request? They tell you the content of the body of the request. They tell you beforehand, right? They tell you the URL. No, you provide the URL they would call, and then they make a request to that URL. Let me say it again. For most REST APIs, you are the one making the request. You are calling an external system, making a request. It could be a post, get, or put request. But webhooks are a special kind of API in which you are being called, right? The system tells you, okay, provide an API I'm going to call on certain events. So it could be an event like when a new message is posted on Slack, I want to notify your backend that a new message has been posted with information about the poster. You use a webhook in that situation. You provide a URL, and your application now handles the outcome of that request, not the third party. Those ones, they just call your backend or your front end or whatever, usually backend, and you handle whatever request you're being called you to do, to maybe create a record in a database, notify something, or do something, right? It could also be when a new user is added to Slack on certain events. One of the most popular places it uses in fintechs, where you are being called when a transaction happens. So for example, when I integrate Paystack into my application, there are two ways I could do it. I could tell Paystack, okay, try to charge this money from this user. When they charge the amount from the user, they respond back to me with details of the charges when it's successful, and I provide value for the user. The other approach is I tell Paystack, charge this user. Paystack tells me, oh, I've received the request to charge the user. And then they call my backend when the charge is successful. And Webhook is pretty important because it makes your flow asynchronous. So most programming activities, most software activities are synchronous. I upload the data, I expect to receive a response. I do A, I expect to receive B. But sometimes you want some things to just come at you spontaneously based on certain activity triggers, right? So you want something to just happen. For example, when someone transfers money to my bank account, using my virtual account created with Paystack or Flutterwave, I want that money to enter my application, to enter my database. I can't preempt when the money will be transferred, so I just have to wait. And when the user transfers it, Paystack calls my webhook URL, the URL I've provided, and I receive that. I verify that the URL is from Paystack, and I persist it. So almost you can just check for it. Almost every software providers that provides an API also provide a webhook for you to actually have an event-driven system or to receive notification of certain activities, right? Something to just take note of when developing a webhook is security, because now anybody can just call your application using that webhook because you've exposed an API. So you want to validate that the request is actually coming from the people that it says coming from. So if it's Paystack, Flutterwave, Smile ID, Stripe, it could be whatever, right? You want to validate that the people that say they are sending the request are the ones actually sending the request. So webhooks are pretty important. You will want to deal with it a lot. Anytime you are stuck and you think you cannot deal with something in the synchronous flow, or you have to wait for some certain system to notify you of an activity, chances are you'll be using the webhook. Okay, I think that's all about webhook. I would appreciate it if you actually take some time to read more about webhook. You can ask any questions you have. But yeah, webhooks are I think they're a pretty interesting feature in software systems and software designs. See you in the next content. Bye.